really great to be here. And what I'll do is a little background on myself. My name is Mel Taylor. I actually used to be the guy that used to bother Paul when I worked at WYSP Radio. I would walk upstairs to CBS and say, you should really hire me for some kind of TV thing. And he kept on saying, you know, this guy is bothering me. So I came up with an idea of, let me develop maybe a 3-minute piece that shows on Saturday morning about technology. So eventually I broke him down, and he allowed me to do a technology piece on CBS 3, so I thank you for that. 25 years ago today, I made the move from WKDU, where I got my start in radio and got my first paid gig at Wi-Fi 92. Hard to believe that 25 years ago today I started in radio here at Drexel, so thanks for inviting me back on this very momentous occasion. The only thing constant is change. Everything's changing so fast that unfortunately a lot of the books and the classes that we take now, as time goes by, you really just can't rely on some of the things you've learned in school. It's really important to really stay up to speed on the things that are happening and changing. Like, for example, today's Wall Street Journal. Sometimes I like to open it up and take a look at what's being highlighted in the Wall Street Journal. EMI record label, firing people. So EMI getting destroyed by peer-to-peer, MP3s, not being able to figure out how to sell something more than a CD. Then the bottom one is Comcast under pressure. They made a lot of money just allowing people to watch TV, but now they're getting pretty much beat up because all people are actually watching video online. Newspapers, hundreds of years, or 100 years at least, doing quite well. Who would ever think that where they make their money in classifieds, 75% of their revenue is in classifieds. Some guy in San Francisco decides to do a free classifieds. Craigslist killed $40 million worth of revenue in San Francisco with his labor of love. Philly.com. I don't get the Inquirer or the Daily News. We go online. Amplify SD is an online alternative radio station at the San Diego Union Tribune. It's a newspaper doing online radio. Newspaper, The Pilot, down in Virginia, they have a TV station online. Howard Stern, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you told somebody at WYSP, someday you're going to lose your morning guy, they'd go, get out of here. Who would think, a couple of years ago, if somebody was at People Magazine or Entertainment Weekly, they'd say, there's going to be some guy, and he has neon hair, and he's going to take photographs of celebrities and draw white stuff coming out of their mouth. And he's going to do it at a Starbucks, and he's going to kick your... And then something called TMZ is going to come up. That's Perez Hilton. He totally wiped out the celebrity magazine category using the online platform. Anybody know who this guy is? That's right. A real estate mogul. He bought the Tribune. He now owns the Chicago Cubs, LA Times, Chicago Tribune. He's converting all of his properties, his newspaper and television properties, into multimedia organizations. They're no longer going to be newspapers or TV stations. They're going to be called local multimedia organizations that just so happen to have a TV station and a newspaper. He's the guy doing it. So that is
quite a setup.
That's either really good because you're excited about the chaos, or it's really scary for those who thought this was just some kind of trend and might go away. What do you think?
Well, it's not going to go away. I mean, it's where we're headed, and it's both scary and really good, I think. And neither's, and so certainly my mom, who just got cable, you know what I mean? So we're still definitely at an early evolution of where things are headed, but things are definitely, the horse is out of the barn.
Jim McGuinn, yeah, you have a class here at Drexel.
Sure.
Do you find that, what percentage of the students that you have, are they aware of these things?
Well, you know, it's interesting. One of the things that I always ask new students, I have them take like a survey of, you know, do you have an iPod? Are you on MySpace or Facebook? One of the questions was, are you aware of podcasting, and have you ever listened to a podcast?
When you're going for a job one day, one of the first things they're going to say is, so do you blog? Where's your blog? You make sure you have a blog.
But Mel?
But you got to be careful.
Well, but how many people are reading your blog? Because we can all blog. You know, and that's one of the huge changes that's happening in society is I think about You know, the cultural things that brought us together years ago, the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, that kind of thing is not going to happen ever again. Maybe the Super Bowl is the closest we get to it today, but there's no more like appointment TV. There's much less appointment radio.
Dan, when you were working with the Daily News and WHYY for the Next Mayor project, how did it come together to put together this local Philadelphia political aggregator, blog, kind of a multimedia site that has become the place if you were interested in the mayoral race? That was the place to go, huh?
Well, I think it was definitely born out of a reaction to what had happened in the previous mayoral election in 2003.
And remember we talked earlier today that you were unsure moving from your comfort zone of television, and all of a sudden you were given a key position to take it online. What was that transition like?
And I was actually a very fledgling TV guy too, so I had barely even gotten my roots in television before I had done political campaigns, and wanted to make that transition. I'm probably, just a few years ago, I'm probably where a lot of people in this room were, they were kind of thinking about which direction their career was going to go in. And I thought, wow, TV news, that seems exciting. That seems like a really fun and interesting place to go. And yes, potentially a place where you can make a lot of money.
We're all traditional media guys, and we realized in order to keep our jobs or to have more opportunity, we started to bring in awareness of what digital skills were necessary for us to continue to stay employed and to make our jobs more fulfilling and to become incredibly valuable employees. I mean, how many times do you have to go through the day hearing people being laid off, fired, downsized? I can assure you, people with interactive skills of any sort, sales, development, the ability to pull in audio, video, blogging, the ability to understand how to program an internet radio station, it makes you a hell of a lot more valuable. And Gil and I, a couple of, maybe a few weeks after your exit from WYSP, we had sort of a heart-to-heart. And you know that I went through that I lost a job because there wasn't much call for on-air disc jockeys anymore, and there was less money to be made, and certainly it was so difficult for radio stations to pay on-air people good money, so I made the move to the web and just struggled to find a web job. And I have a feeling that now that you're with Red Lasso, you're probably little by little almost forgetting about, well, you described that you kind of missed radio, but I bet every day it gets less and less sad.
That's true. Yeah, I think radio or any media business is a business of change, sort of leading to the slogan, I guess, that Mel put up on the screen. And whether it's trends, fads, whatever, media is always affected by these things, especially in the radio world when it comes to format choices and whether or not, what kind of music people like and those kind of, which is a whole nother discussion.
If you were going to have a minute, just 1 minute, with somebody ready to graduate, and you got stuck in an elevator with them, and they were like all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I want to get a radio job, I want to be just like you, I want to be a program director and do afternoon drive, I want to be like Monkey Boy, and then of course, you talk to somebody saying, I'm going to be a hard-hitting political analyst in the newspaper. Someday I will be at the Chicago Tribune. What would you say to them to make sure that they were prepared for all these new opportunities, even though things are changing so fast? How do you prepare them for this new digital world?
That's a tough question. I mean, for me, it was learning by the seat of my pants, learning how to build a website, learning about all kinds of new technologies that are available, learning how to, in my case, how to create a radio station in my bedroom, something that was not really possible 10 or 15 years ago.
But you know that interactive skills are so key, because someday you're going to be a hiring manager, and you're going to get resumes, and you'll be like, so what bloggers? Do you know who Ariana Huffington is? And if they don't know what she does or who she is, you may not hire them. So what are you going to tell them?
And that's exactly right. You have to know what's out there and where the information is coming from. And just in a few years even, the blogosphere is going to take over the political discussion to an even greater extent than it is now. And you've already started to see that in this presidential race, where the old form of what was named the Gang of 500, those 500 insider pundits and journalists who were sort of in the beltway, who used to control all of the discussion and all of the messaging, they're starting to lose ground to the bloggers all over the country.
What would you tell them to do to prepare for those opportunities that will likely become more abundant very, very soon?
Be passionate, have goals, study the old media, make sure you know where the business has been and how it operates and how it works.
What was it like at WISP at Fifth and Market when you found out that the biggest radio disc jockey, arguably in the world, that was on your morning show, was leaving to go to this thing called satellite?
The reality is what you said. We were taking someone that ultimately, I think, took nearly 60% of the station's revenue away, which forced a major change in how the station was doing business and how it was going to proceed to evolve and where it was going to go from there, and then into a period of a lot of turmoil and change. And
do you think radio in general has the ability to successfully build online businesses, or are they under the gun to keep their old business alive?
They're not moving fast enough, in my opinion. There's a lot of big talk with little action, and there's big press releases and major publications and things that sort of set the tone for where broadcast, radio companies specifically are going in the online world.
Let me just summarize real quick. Traditional media is not going away, but it will change, it will contract, and it's so focused on driving revenue the old-fashioned way, the way these very smart TV, radio, and newspaper managers have been making money for decades, that they don't have enough time to focus on building new businesses. So you were asking about the 2% drop in television revenue.
In radio?
In radio.
Oh, in radio, okay.
Actually, in December, radio revenues were down an average of 9%. They're getting clobbered.
I would say, though, that the revenues were so fat over the last 10 years because of the Post-Telecommunications Act consolidation and the sort of job consolidation. When you're working at a radio company, a major radio company now, you're probably talking about a radio station needing to generate a cash flow of 50 to 60%.
Advertisers, if you're selling General Motors cars, you now have many more places to place your advertising dollars.
Niching of
the internet is taking a majority of those
the advertising
dollars.
buys are getting split up.
Everything's
radio
getting spread.
specifically isn't necessarily capitalizing on some of that money that is out there that technically could be spent on them if they could justify the audience and build the product and content to a point where it was attractive enough for people to spend the money on those initiatives.
Viewing is
It's a really good question. Keep focusing on that, and you will have a lot of work.
Yeah.
Focus on showing TV, radio, and newspaper, any media, how to drive additional growth in revenue, utilizing old and new media, and you'll be up here in only a matter of years. You really will.